Well, we're almost there, almost halfway through our second day. We could do it. Keep the energy up. For those who don't know me, my name is Linden Brinks. I work with Tim at the Great Lakes Observing System. And yesterday you heard Tim say that we're working to make the concept of bathymetry and high resolution data and data density more accessible to someone like Tim's mom. I was going to use my mom for this presentation, but Tim's mom's already on brand, so we'll stick with her. To a wide range of people, and I'm talking about this specifically in the terms of the crowdsourced bathymetry that we've been developing with our partner Orange Force Marine. So by now, I'm sure you're all very familiar with this image. It's on your name tags, it's on all your swag. I've even seen it in some of your presentations, and some of us were even lucky enough to get shirts. Just saying, they're real nice. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this image, and with this, and something like this, as well as this. But the problem is that we don't have any of these for all of this. And that's why we're here. We're here to talk about Lakebed 2030, mapping the Great Lakes with high resolution, high density data to modern standards by 2030, a lofty goal. But I think that everyone in this room is committed and we can get it done. So over the last few years, we, and I'm talking about a collective we, not just GLOS, have been working on a number of different things to complete this goal. We've conducted spatial prioritizations to determine need over the entirety of the Great Lakes. This image is from a study that was done on what became the Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast. We've done studies in Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and we did one over the entirety of the Great Lakes, results of which I believe there is an image of in Rear Admiral Evans' presentation yesterday. We have done a number of different gap analyses. NOAA has conducted one, CHS presented on theirs yesterday, and we did one at GLOS. We've created numerous graphics and images to explain high resolution data, high density data, what a multi-beam is, why do we need this data, because it's not something that your average person, like Tim's mom, might understand. And we've conducted cost analyses. How much does it cost? How much time might we need to actually meet our goal? So at GLOS, as I mentioned, we have a crowdsourced bathymetry that we started last summer, feels like it's been longer than that, with Orange Force Marine. And if you're interested in learning more about the hardware side of things, feel free to talk to Derek and Colin, and they have an example at our table on the booth, probably behind me. So at the moment that I made these slides, we had about 25 vessels out collecting data in the water. They're likely collecting water or data as we speak. And they were primarily located in Lakes Erie and Ontario. So I'm going to focus on those lakes for this presentation, though I've heard we're extending into the remaining lakes and may even be including the Northwestern in our small but mighty fleet. So how are they collecting data? Oh no, short preview. They are using a data logger that connects to the onboard navigation systems, and it sends the single beam data that those navigation systems collect over Wi-Fi or through cellular data back to us in near real time, where it is automatically harvested into a AWS cloud that GLOS hosts. So our end users and volunteers don't actually have to do anything except continue to fuel their boats. So it's all well and good that we have all these vessels and volunteers in our crowdsourced bathymetry, but we have to start providing feedback to them. So we've been looking into how we're going to do that. Well, first, they want to know where they are collecting data. And then they might want to know where they should be collecting data. If we can show them where they are, we can show them where they might want to go. And then we need to do this in a way that is easily digestible, because not everybody is a hydrographer. We need to make it so that Tim's mom could understand where we need data. And in some cases, navigating something like a simple web map may be difficult. So here we are again. We took the hex graphic that we're all very familiar with, and if you forgot, like I said, it's on your name tag, and we made it real. And as I said before, I'm going to clarify, this is just for our crowdsourced bathymetry. So we've been calling it the hex map, real original, I know. And we're open to naming ideas, so if you want to, give me some ideas later, hit me up. So what are we looking at here? So like I said, just Lake Erie in Ontario. These hexagons are about 400 kilometers across. And they represent at least one point somewhere within those hexagons, which is a very similar idea to what Christine presented on yesterday. As you can see, they're all filled. We're done. We can go home. Yay, crowdsourced bathymetry. Obviously, that's not true. If we zoom in, you can now see that there are indeed gaps within our data in Lake Erie and Ontario. These kilometers are about 50 kilometers, or these hexagons are about 50 kilometers across. I've been lovingly calling them a hex resolution of 50 kilometers, but Tim suggested we call them hexolution, and now I'm in love. So that's what we're going to call them from now on. And if we zoom in a little further, we're now looking off the coast of the city of Toronto. You can see these are the hexolution of 400 meters, not 400 kilometers, we're into meters now. And bigger gaps are revealed. And you can even start to see some of the vessel track lines. If we zoom in even further to what these are, have a hexolution of 8 meters, you can see individual points, you can see track lines, and you may even be able to determine how fast those vessels were going based on the number of spaces between filled hexagons. So pictures are all well and good, but how does that actually work? How would someone like Tim's mom be able to see data density at different resolutions? Well, all she would need to do is navigate to the map and explore. As you can see, new hexolutions or point spacings appear as you zoom in, which reveals different scales and gaps in the data. To be clear, empty cells do not have data. The goal for our crowdsourced bathymetry is to encourage vessel operators to navigate into empty hex cells so that we can start to fill in the blanks. And since we're collecting this data in near real time, with the data processing pipeline that GLOS developed, we have the potential to have these results show up on their map shortly after they collect the data, which is near instant gratification. I bet everybody here is into instant gratification. I know I am. I'm always looking at things on my phone. And so each filled hex is basically its own reward. You could even say we're virtually handing out participation trophies. So how does it work on the back end? Our volunteers are out collecting data, and that gets automatically harvested and sent to the GLOS cloud. Once there, it gets converted to XYZ data that we send a copy of to the DCDB as an IHO trusted node. And then it gets binned into H3GO, which if you aren't familiar with H3GO, it's a hexagonal grid-based API that essentially bins data into varying sizes of hexagons, which in our case, we're calling hexolutions. It's similar to Google Maps. As you zoom in and out, different hexolutions appear and disappear. And once it's binned the data, it creates a GeoJSON that we are displaying in Seagull, which at the moment, this is just a prototype. So as I said, we're still in the beginning stages of this project, and we can see a number of different potential uses for it. So in the future, we're thinking, where do we go from here? Where might we want to use this? Well, first, we're looking to put it into Seagull and exposing it to the public, especially our volunteers. And then we'd like to continue to recruit more volunteers for crowdsourced bathymetry. I know Orange Force Marine has been working very diligently on that. And then we'd like to use it to educate the public on what data density means. And we'd like to use it as a visualization tool to use to educate our funders, like our politicians or interested organizations. And then finally, we want to use it to advance the goals of Lakebed 2030. Thank you. If you're interested in hearing more about or participating in any way, you can contact me or all of us at underwater@gloss.org, or you could email me specifically at linden@gloss.org. And I'll open it up to questions.
Questions?
Since the data is collected by different vessels, I imagine you have some relationship that you can transfer data to make sure that some standards, and once they're not into, they not too much to get and water level.
Yes, but that might actually be a better question to ask Derek, and I can see he's excited to answer it.
The dynamics of the system is that it operates solely off the vessel communications. So we know when we call it echo-center transducer on the bottom of our hull, we feed it pressure water. We can measure the how far below the water level. And so you can start to correct that to water running up. And so we're essentially capturing raw data from that vessel. When it's and that's where the BCP is that raw position and depth all the way through the measuring of vessel offsets. If you guys can identify the depth of the transducer, correct at the water level, and then from the water level, for the calculating for that data using very vessels. It's all tracked from a metadata perspective. The system
Anybody else? I mean, I had an observation. I'm wondering, can you incentivize the deliverer of these data to, we know you're in this area, we see it always go this way. Is there going to be interaction with those users who are providing data going south, going west, to try and fill in some areas that they still get them to their end place and fill in the grids? Is that thought of in terms of incentivizing backwards to these providers?
Yes, and it looks like Tim wants to answer that question.
Yeah, you know why. So, does anyone raise their hand in this room not to drop too much of a bomb because I like secrets? But is anyone familiar with the Million Pixel project? A few people? So well, I don't know, in the early 2000s, there was an individual who took 1,000 by 1,000 print. He sold 8 pixels for $1. And like crazy, he was getting like $1. Anyway, we're not saying we sell X's, but in terms of incentivizing people to go collect data, we are considering some different gamified ideas for how we get people to collect this data. So I think other people have ideas on how we can gamify or how we can incentivize people. They take on a little piece of the very lazy Lakewater, maybe a little plaque, a little sticker in the mail or something. I don't know. Just like provide anything from the Zoom. We don't really on that. But we like to do it with an AED. And so I think we got some ideas, and if you have ideas, please let us know.
I think the other comment to that is probably having that one there, generally recommendation and we collect that data. I think the other piece is that intrinsic motivation. And in order to know what has left to be done, you have to know where you've been. And so, I mean, a vessel has the opportunity, a volunteer vessel has an opportunity to go in and see their track lines, see where they've been in their own head. Next time they're sailing, the next day, the next week, choose to expand because they're motivated to be part of that project, to be part of Lakebed 2030, to be contributing to adding more taxes that are so, you know, we can quantify that, but there's intrinsic motivation in individuals.
I was even thinking because we're on fire much mother a lot, that maybe she should probably go for the ocean. Oh, here's right. Is there a certain profile of current user group, and do you have an idea of who the next adopters would be, and then like that, where is the cost of adopting the modifications?
That's a good question. It looks like Derek wants to answer that one too. I have the easy job up here. I don't have to answer any questions.
James, your comment in regards to modification, no modification to vessels, right? And we're not asking the volunteer vessels to make any changes to what they're doing, either in their equipment, either in their operating profile, or in some cases where they head with those pieces. So no modifications to the vessel itself. But the equipment itself just merely plugs into their organic navigation suite. And so nothing to tackle on that front. Sorry, the other theme that you had, profile of vessels. Yes, thank you. So for right now, I mean, we're all in the room with various organizations that have scientific interest or research interest or survey interest along the way. And so vessels from our organizations are prime candidates to want to participate. Those vessels that we see out here are prime candidates. And so the fleet as it stands right now is made up of those vessels from academic institutions, from government organizations, some first responders, from some light commercial that's out on the water. And so first and foremost, do they want to participate in Lakebed 2030? Do they have a vessel that's out flying more often than your weekend recreational vessel? Do they transit greater distances over time so they can collect more data or be fixed in their 2-mile radius around the harbor? And do they have the navigation suite that's of suitable quality that we can have a reasonable level of confidence from the data that's coming out of that? So those are all factors that go into sort of vessel selection. At the end of the day, the sky's the limit, right? We could roll from a sail drone to a pleasure boat to a pleasure sailing vessel. The whole spectrum. It becomes prioritization for which gets us our best bang for a buck to cover more of Linden's hexes, and how many of these units can we fund to put out into service and to collect some data. That answer the question, Jim? Sorry, Brendan.
That's okay.
Brian, you had a question?
Yeah, just what type of format would you want? Because I've been doing stuff in the Great Lakes for 25 years. And like 5 weeks ago, I was down on the DTE power plant on the Detroit River, and where the River Rouge dumps in there. And I did a whole bathymetric survey of the River Rouge and up front of it on the Detroit River. But it was in UTM. And northern east, you want latitude, longitude, and date and time because fluctuations of the river and so forth. I mean, I could give you terabytes of data if you want it, but what you want it in.
So that's very much defined in the IHO crowdsourcing guidance document, B12. And the articulation is that for the most part, because of the dynamics for water levels and corrections and what have you, an XYZ format for that position, lat long depth is sort of those three elements that are critical to be able to contribute on those.
All right, so you want some correction put in for, if your sonar to 4 feet underwater, you want that.
The vessel offsets. Yeah.
Vessel offsets.
You can bring it to the water line. Generally, we can make use of it.
Yeah, okay. Then figuring, do you want like a date time stamp on it, or So you can figure out what water elevations were, wherever it was.
Downstream users can pull that data from the DCDB and sorry, Jessica, don't want to speak for you, but hopefully we're getting it right. Date, lat, long, depth. Those 4 elements are kind of key points to be able to create that point cloud of depth data.
Okay.
Yeah, if you got stuff to contribute. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add your information to this. So.
Sorry.
Jason,
I have a very simple question. If I have a vessel, how do I participate?
Come talk to us. We'll yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, any of the volunteer vessels, we establish an existing user agreement with you that makes you aware that, hey, we're gonna put the gear on, we're gonna kind of track where you're going with your vessel, and that the data that which you provide is bound for the public domain. Right, and if we're okay with all those pieces, then it just becomes a matter of allocating resource. And we look at your sailing profile, allocating a resource in terms of a muscle kit to be able to provide for your vessel. We'll talk. Thanks.
So we have 2 online questions. One is from Brandon from Meek. It says, regarding filling the no data gaps, are there any safety concerns? For example, too shallow for safe operation or security zones for consideration in identifying where vessels should be directed to go and filling the no data gaps?
That's a good question. At the moment, I believe that's up to the discretion of the vessel operator. Like Derek said, all of our vessels at the moment are more marine, academic, industry vessels, so they're familiar with the limitations of their vessels and what marine traffic they should be following and not following.
Thank you. And we have a second question from Clinton Little. He says, will there be a 10-long version of an updated mapping needs survey? I facilitated input from 6 people who didn't find the process to be easy. And then we found out that our input from 7 people only counted as 1 vote.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. That might be more of a question for IWG OCM, maybe Meredith.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, it says, will there be a 10-long version of an updated mapping needs survey? I facilitated input from 6 people who didn't find the process to be easy. In the end, we found out that our input from 7 people only counted as 1 vote. Motion counted.
We can also follow up with people. I would say right now we don't have any new great spatial priority studies in the works. We did just release a tech memo that has all the results available. I can explain why we kind of agglomerated though responses into 1. So even though you had, was it 6 individuals responded, you were counted as 1 organization. So all your responses got merged into 1 and represented you as an organization. So no data was lost. But that was all post-processing that happened after individuals submitted on behalf of organizations. Does that clarify? Well, so unfortunately, no 10-long version of spatial priorities would be anytime soon, but maybe in the future.
Awesome, thank you. It was funny yesterday after we talked about Tim's mom, my dad called me in the middle of the conference. She knew I was working. I'm like, you okay? He's like, the printer just crashed. I can't get it connected to the internet. What do I do? Any other questions?
So I have 2 questions, semi-related. One, the equipment that's actually installed on the vessel, the water, how much does that cost?
At the moment, I believe it's free because Gloss is funding it.
But somebody will.
We've been operating in partnership with GLOS. I've been funding the project to be able to make some progress and progress So there's an equipment cost, and then there's an ongoing transmission cost for how we get that data off of the vessel, right? If the vessel is existing Wi-Fi or SAT or connectivity, really simple, we can back done things. For some of our smaller vessels, we're transmitting out subwaves cellular transmission. So I say that because there's ongoing operations and maintenance and initial capital on that one. One of the things that we don't want to ask our vessels to do is, you want to volunteer, you're going to provide a bunch of sea days and ship time and fuel. If you don't want to do what you do, we're not going to ask the vessel operators to fund the equipment. The equipment cost itself, apparently in its early prototype stages here, are 25, right? Or cheap sea days. I mean, if you can imagine that from a survey perspective, we're essentially capitalizing on a single beam echo sounder for potentially hundreds of vessels out there. The equivalent survey time associated with that are as far as the capital costs. That is your question.
Wait, can I quick summarize for the people online? So that cost will never be on the vessel operator, but we're still in the prototype stage, so it's about $2,500 a piece.
The second question, I think you talked a little about this, I'm wondering if you elaborate on the QAQC procedures that you're applying to the data after it's received from the vessel and the work is just, you know.
So if you're referring to like the IHO DCDB, at the moment they're interested in the raw data, and I'm sure Jess could probably speak to this a little bit more deeply. And all they ask for is XYZ. So location and date and time.
The other bit of quality control that goes into that is part of the initial, when the data comes off the vessel into the AWS server, that's run through a series of decompression, conversion, and quality. So if you're out there and historically we're seeing 60 meters, and then all of a sudden they get a 250 meter spike, that sort of thing would be filtered. Or you're out there and you're putting your engines astern, a big wash across there. Those sort of, or we were in shallow water right alongside the dock, repeat, same position, same depth. Those sorts of pieces will be filtered as part of the initial scripting before we write it XYZ, before we operate. All that together.
So that's all automated.
All automated, all in the cloud.
Yeah, and to summarize for people online, we do remove outliers, and that's all done automated in the cloud.
So yeah, you kind of answered the question. You said that you supplied the equipment, writing down the data, didn't use your equipment. Are you implying that we should do fishing boat captains as well as the bay of fish, use their data?
That's exactly it.
So I like all the data, so. Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you can get the fishing vessels to cooperate and see the value in contributing their bathymetric data for uploading for DCDB for us all to use and all to download, that's great. That would be a serious milestone. And that's the advantage of a centralized data repository in terms of DCDB. Anybody can pull that data down. Anyone can use your I guess, can they contribute that? Can they contribute that to the DCDB and be it by way of a trusted node? And can they do that in a proper format for XYZ? If the answer to that is yes, I would imagine that you'd be interested in collecting any sort of data that anybody can do.
And just look at it as a target, population. Those guys want that lake to be good, and so they want to help.
We can have that conversation to fishing boats.
Other questions?
Okay, I have two follow-ups from our online questions. So for Little, he was clarifying, he said it was hard to get the answer, but the provider stated that it was one vote per agency.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so, yeah, so, and I also said they, you know, I knew she was in the, whatever. Okay, and then we had Brandon from back to his question, about the, so he said, okay, I would just hate to see similar issues to where people follow their GPS and Google Maps instead of taking into account the local surroundings. More directed to recreational voters, especially if there's an incentive to fill in gaps.
That's a really good point, and I'm not too proud to admit that's happened to me before. With a GPS, not with a boat. But at the moment, as we said, recreational voters are not currently included in our crowdsourced bathymetry. So we haven't developed a plan for that. When or if we do include them, we will be thinking about that more seriously.
Well, and Linden, I guess the other piece of that is nothing is almost a maps for the vessel for safety navigation of the vessel, whether they're driving a line to fill out X or not. I mean, they're responsible for that safe navigation. So if it's not safe to go to that X, then maybe you can't claim us together.
Okay, I think all my questions stopped. Any other questions in the room?
Maybe you might share the link to the tech.
I was gonna make a comment, there's a serious about engaging sport fishing communities, maybe a great spot to start, like organizations like the Code Association. I would be very interested in the same presentation. Yes, hardware for it, right, dangerous. That's the goal, right? I mean, I would say let's talk to those organizations and let's see if we can generate. I know all of us in the room here are proponents to go ahead and say, who else can get involved in Lakebed 23? Who else can distribute data? Who else can bring online data? And I got those people.
Cool. Well, thanks, everyone.